Hello, my friends, and welcome to another edition of Midweek with Meaning. I just wanted to do a sound check. So if you're watching live, if you can give me a thumbs up or something, if the sound's working okay. Otherwise, I'll want to mess around with it. But welcome to Wednesday. I am really looking forward to this talk today where we're going to discuss the importance of touch. So as you're coming on, please say hello. Make sure if you're watching on Facebook that you give StreamYard permission to share your profile so I can see who's watching. And if you're watching on YouTube, you can also leave comments there. Please make sure to subscribe and like and all that stuff. And if you're watching the replay, please put replay in the comments. I love knowing that you had a chance to check this out. So this is an important conversation, and it was inspired for two different reasons for me. One reason is I had a beautiful summer solstice ceremony recently where we were able to build in a lot of wonderful, consensual, non-sexual touch, which not only felt so good to me, it seemed to be very therapeutic for the participants in the ceremony too. There's something really rich, bonding, and sweet about that experience. And then I also received a fantastic massage from an amazing practitioner this week, and it just really got me thinking about the language of touch and how much that's a part of our system and how we really thrive in the world. So that's the topic today. But I want to share that sometimes talking about touch can be a little triggering, perhaps, or a bit emotional for you. So please make sure, as you're listening to this, to take care of yourself and your well-being, stay grounded, keep your feet on the earth, feel your body, take care of yourself to whatever degree you can. Also, feel free to post in the chat if you have questions or you'd like to slow down and go back over something. Know that there's a brief delay, about I think 10-second delay. So I'll get to your question as soon as I see it. But the key thing I want you to know in this conversation today is that touch matters, and without it, we fail to thrive. So we are at a time where we have increasing challenges around receiving and sharing touch due to the pandemic. I think there's been a lot of fear and anxiety around touch, and just we're not really even allowed to touch, right, for a while. Although that might be coming back online, I think that there's really been a huge challenge for many of us being in isolation or being disconnected from touch in ways that we've received it before. So that's the experience of what's known as touch starvation, also known as skin hunger or touch deprivation. It occurs when a person experiences little or no touch from other living things. But we're wired to be touched. From birth until the day we die, our need for physical contact remains along the entire lifespan. So why is touch important? Touch, skin to skin, feeling another person's skin is vital not only for our mental and emotional health, but our physical health too. When you're stressed out, we all understand that we experience the feeling of releasing cortisol, that fight or flight or anxious response when we're stressed. One of the biggest things that touch can do is to reduce stress, allowing our immune system to work the way that it should and helping us be in a better location that can help lower our heart rate and our blood pressure. It does so by stimulating pressure receptors that transport signals to the vagus nerve. I'd love to do a midweek with meaning around polyvagal theory, which I know just scratch the surface about, but it's so fascinating. So the vagus nerve connects the brain to the rest of the body, and it makes a passageway through the heart and lungs and into the gut. And it's an afferent nerve, so it receives messages and sends messages back. So it's really fascinating, but touch helps to kind of settle the nervous system back down. And touch helps bring that down, helps settle that nervous system response. In early life, touch is thought to be crucial for building healthy relationships by stimulating pathways for oxytocin, the natural antidepressant serotonin, and the pleasure neurotransmitter dopamine. I know those are very simplistic ways of describing those neurotransmitters, but that's a good way to think about it. Touch can also tackle loneliness. According to a 2017 study, gentle touch can not only reduce pain, but it can also help reduce those feelings of social exclusion. It can help you feel bonded and connected. I really began to understand the importance of touch when I worked as a birth worker, as a doula, and as a labor and delivery nurse. There is increasing evidence about how important skin-to-skin contact is for newborns. So first, just imagine our skin is just nerves, right? Or just like this is the way we experience the world around us. I mean, I have goosebumps right now because it's a little chilly outside. So when a baby is coming through the birth canal, this baby is receiving pressure and releasing. It stimulates the baby's entire nervous system. It helps a vaginal birth, helps the baby also has to use its own body to help itself be born. Babies aren't just passive riders in birth. They actually are active participants in their birthing process. So if anyone's been at a birth, most babies, when they come out, are pretty alert and quiet. They don't usually scream their head off. Some babies cry a little, but they're not usually loud and crying for days and days. They might come out and cry a little, but usually once we place them skin to skin, they settle and they're very alert and they're looking around and they're like, whoa. And putting baby skin to skin helps baby co-regulate its nervous system with mom. It helps pattern its breathing and stimulate heart rate to match in a more even balance, and also regulates body temperature. And one thing that they have discovered, I can't remember the researcher's name at the moment, but that babies held skin to skin with mom for at least 15 minutes helps wire the oxytocin pathway in the brain, not only for baby, but also for mom too. So that eye gazing, that skin to skin, having baby right here helps wire that for both mom and baby. And then for dad and baby, or for any other care provider, but it seems like for men, I think that's what the study was done on, is a baby that is held skin to skin on father's naked chest for 30 minutes stimulates his dopamine pathway, the reward and pleasure pathway. So it's like holding your baby is like getting a big win at the casino. So those are really normal ways that we all really should have come into this world and been held and touched and wired. And yet many of us have heard about newborns' failure to thrive. There are many stories of orphanages or different, situations where newborns were not held. And if they're not held, nuzzled, and hugged, they can stop growing. So it can affect babies' growth. And if the situation lasts long enough, babies may even die, which I think is such an incredible thing. So how did we learn about this? Many of you perhaps have heard of Harlow's monkeys studies and his development of attachment theory. So he was working with, I think they're rhesus monkeys. Rhesus monkeys are highly dependent on their mothers for nutrition, protection, comfort, and socialization. So Harlow originally believed that the infant attached to the mother because the mother provided food. So he was the one that developed that wire monkey and then the cloth fabric monkey. And the wire monkey is the one that had a bottle, had milk, was the food provider. And the other one was no food, but just comfort. And it turned out that the monkeys prefer to spend their time on the cloth monkey instead of the bottle monkey. It makes me so sad to think about that poor little baby not having a real mom. It's just so fucked up. And animal research. But the result of that experiment, Harlow explained that the attachment develops as a result of the mother providing tactile comfort, suggesting that infants have an innate or biological need to touch and cling to something for emotional comfort. He also studied putting these babies in isolation. So if this is, I feel a little personally flared up just talking about this because I find it just so sad. But he put these babies in ice and isolated them from birth, and they had no contact with each other or anybody else. And some he kept for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and the first year of their lives. And then he put them back with other monkeys to see what the effect of their failure to form attachments was like on their behavior. The results showed that the monkeys engaged in bizarre behavior such as clutching their own bodies and rocking compulsively. So poor little ones. When they placed them back with other monkeys, the babies were scared of other monkeys and then became very aggressive towards them. They were also unable to communicate or socialize with other monkeys. They were bullied by the other monkeys. They also indulged in self-mutilation, tearing out hair, scratching and biting their own arms and legs, which is just awful. Yeah, I'm not going to read some more of this because it's quite painful. However, the thing that they noticed is not allowing us to form an attachment bond was permanently damaging to the monkeys. And there is some evidence that not being able to form an attachment bond is very, very difficult on us as humans. So many of my clients and many people that I know have some form of complex PTSD or have had some challenges with their own upbringing and maybe did not have an opportunity to receive healthy bonded touch as youngsters. And I just want to share that this is not hopeless. If this is you and you did not receive the kind of touch that you needed as a youngster, we can work on healing that for you. So this is leading to a whole bunch of questions, right? Like, what are the effects of the lack of touch on us when we were children? What are the effects on us as adults? And how do we begin to heal from the lack of touch as children and as adults? So, and then what to do? What do we do if you don't particularly like being touched? So, lots to talk about here. So, I think that let's start with if you don't like to be touched. If you don't like to be touched, many people still are touch starved, even if they don't like to be touched. And part of the challenge there is that people closely link touch with trust. This makes a lot of sense. So if you've had trauma or assault, or you have been in a situation where touch was actually violent or crossed boundaries or was very painful, it can really build a wall around receiving touch, or that might also put you in a situation where you prefer to only give touch and not receive touch. But that doesn't mean that you don't still long for the benefits of a simple handshake or a hug. Additionally, some people that don't like touch are either on the neurodiverse spectrum or maybe are identified as asexual, which is absolutely totally fine. And yet, I think it's good to kind of see if that's true for us, if it's truly like, no, touch really isn't my jam, or if it's maybe a trauma response or a wounded response of some kind. What else? It also is part of how we're brought up, right? If you were brought up in a household that didn't have a lot of touch or physical affection, it's unlikely that you've had that modeled, and you might not ever really learn to initiate it. And you might be fine with that. Yet, I think it's important to maybe explore this as some help. So, let's say, how do we begin to heal this lack of touch as a child? If you came from a situation that was traumatic, I think it's important to move very slowly and mindfully if you're wanting to engage touch, and to work with a trauma-informed massage therapist, let's say, or if you're doing psychedelic-assisted work with someone that's trauma-informed and understands how to use consensual touch in the practice of healing and helping one to receive that. of course, I think therapy is so helpful in that way, somatic work. But if you've also not received a lot of touch as a child or an adult, as a single person or someone not partnered, this can be a little trickier because I want to be clear that the touch of an intimate partner that may or may not include sexual expression is different than what I'm talking about here. That type of touch is fantastic, and yet I think some of the challenge we have in our society is that we've collapsed all of our touch onto our sexual partner, if we have one or many or whatever, instead of understanding that touch is part of our social norm, truly. This is part cultural. There are some places in the country where touch is way more accepted. When I went to Egypt, I was really amazed at how much physical closeness there was between the men in Egypt. They would walk with their arms around each other quite frequently just down the street, and it was just such a sweet thing to witness. Just their ease of connection and friendship. Just was this kind of relaxation about their connection, which was really, really nice. But then other countries and cultures don't have touch really at all. Yet, how might we develop more of that? So again, if you don't have access to another person, one of the first places we can begin is through a technique called havening, which is simply stroking your own body. So if you Google this, you can find all kinds of stuff, but it's really a no-brainer. A lot of people do this already. So simply stroking your own skin and your face or your arms, if you're watching right now, try it out. Just the gentle stroking can truly help to quiet your own nervous system. You're using the tools of your body to help settle that. You may also have a pet. I mean, the word pet, right? Because we're petting. If you have a dog or a cat or a hamster or whatever other creature, oxytocin loops can be stimulated in that way too, of petting your pet. So definitely get a pet so you can have some touch with them. It's really helpful. Other ways you can receive touch, if you are partnered or not, is of course receiving massage and body work. This is so powerful. When I think about this massage I had on Monday with my dear friend and amazing body worker, there was a place where we were not in language space. We were very engaged in the present experience and communicating together, but simply through the experience of touch. She wasn't like pushing me in one place and saying, how does that feel? And then I think about it and then I tell her and report back. Like, it was very much out of the mindset and into the experience of what her body was feeling in response to mine. This is really healthy, really, really healthy. It helps us get more in touch with our own body and where we begin, where we end and others begin. It helps us to be able to learn how to express boundaries in a healthy way. Other ways we can get more touch is to start asking for it with your friends and family or the people around you. Now, of course, it's crucial that you do this with consent, that you ask permission and you respect the answer, and that you're clear with what that means. So let's say you are connecting to perhaps a friend that you haven't seen in a while, and you have a longing to hug them. Like I've been hugging a lot more lately, but not everybody's comfortable with that yet, right? So let's ask, are you comfortable with hugging? May I hug you? Yes or no? And if you do have a chance to hug, then enjoy it. See if you can settle your body in response. If you have a dear friend or a partner or somebody that would be, also practice marriage, and he talked about hugging relaxed. you might not have to go quite this far, but it's an opportunity to stand connected to someone and hugging and staying close. And you might find that you'll hit a wall where you want to pull away, or you're kind of like, I don't know, when I did it for me, I realized how much I was really concerned about how my partner was standing and if they were comfortable. And then like I was able to settle in and take care of my own needs, and it dropped my energy, and then that person's energy dropped, and then our breathing kind of would sync up. And it was deeply relaxing to do that practice. Perhaps if you're hanging out with friends, invite them to, I don't sit close, or put their feet on your lap, or, just something that we can do that invites a little bit more connection, that feels safe. So what else do I want to say about that? I think that it is so important to think about if you are suffering from skin hunger and if it's affecting how you feel. And let's find ways to touch each other more in this upcoming week. That is your challenge. Be safe, wash your hands, do all the things, but notice if you can find a little more connection, get a little more touch. So thank you for joining me in this conversation. If this triggered you in any way, or if you have more questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to connect and just see where you're at and see if I have resources or recommendations that might be helpful for you. Yeah. And if you like this talk, please remember to give it a thumbs up, like it, and maybe share it with your friends. That would be great. All right. I shall see you all next week. Thank you so much for joining me, and have a wonderful rest of your week full of touch and love and connection. Bye.